Hey everyone, Josh Rogers here, co-founder and CEO of YOKE Leaders. So glad you're here with us today. At YOKE, we believe you were never meant to build alone. And that is really what this podcast is about. In the middle of it is where we sit down with real builders and just have an honest conversation about what it actually takes. Today, Jeff and I got to sit down with Houghton, CEO and founder of Infinite Giving. Karen has built something really special, and her story of figuring out when to let go and who to let in is one I think you are going to really connect with. Let's get into it.
Today we're with Karen Houghton, who's the CEO and founder at Infinite Giving. Karen, thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first let's start with that sort of inkling of an idea of Infinite Giving. I would love to hear a little bit of your founder story and how you got to this point.
Yeah, I actually have a unique background. Infinite Giving is a financial partner for nonprofits. And I have been a founder of a nonprofit where I filed for the 501c3 and I was the development officer and executive director and was fundraising, and then made a very bizarre leap into a 10-year plus career in tech and venture capital. And I kept seeing the different sides of how we think about money, how we manage money, what we're allowed to do, what we have access to. And that was a problem that I felt like I was made to solve. Not a lot of nonprofit leaders have venture capital background, and not a lot of venture capitalists have experience in the nonprofit world and the fundraising. And I also had served on a lot of boards. And I felt like I had a unique calling and opportunity to help make finances more approachable, more accessible for the small to mid-sized nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, love it.
And thus I went for it and built Infinite Giving.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the organization. Tell us about your product and kind of the problems you're solving for your customers.
Yeah. We are a financial partner for nonprofits, so we make it easy for nonprofit leaders to receive donations, mostly complex donations, manage those donations, and grow those donations. So we're a registered investment advisor, financial technology platform that goes from the stock, crypto, donor advised fund, endowment giving, all the way to cash management and just really strong stewardship and even endowment creation and management.
Love it. Okay, so tell us a little bit about building Infinite Giving and some of the pain points along the way. Love to hear more.
Pain points as an entrepreneur, I have no idea what you're talking about. All smooth sailing. Yeah, I think making sure that you're building what you're called to build, right? And or you're the right person to solve the problem in front of you. And so again, I think that unique experience of being a board member, an executive director, and a fundraiser, and in the investment advice and venture capital world, gave me a unique perspective to that. And so spent probably a year and a half, doing a lot of research, did 100 customer interviews, making sure hey, do I really understand the problem I'm solving? Am I going to build something that people want? Is it a nice to have? Is it a need to have? What's unique in the market? How can we disrupt the market? So it was really thoughtful on that side of things. And then building a financial technology platform is expensive and takes time. So I raised some money and began building. And today we serve over 400 nonprofits all over the U.S. And are really proud of the impact that we're having. I think we onboarded 7 new organizations last week, have a bunch lined up today. So we're growing quite quickly. And it's a beautiful thing when you get thanked for doing the work that you do. So that being said, I think there's lots of ups and downs. That was hey, here's the beginning and here's where we are now. There's a lot of ups and downs in that, as any leader knows, whether it's people, it's product, it's making sure that you're aligned with your customers, how you're serving them. How do you handle things when things go wrong? Because they do. How do you make it right? I think that's been a wild ride, and it's a true test, I think, of grit and perseverance when you're building something from nothing. It's not meant for everybody, and the odds are not in your favor. So there's a lot of conviction that you have to have as you work through that journey.
Man, it's good. So as you think about sort of where you're at and sort of going through that, I know that you have, and as you've been building your business, you work to engage some fractional support and a fractional leader to come in and sort of help you along that journey. Talk to me a little bit about that moment that you realized you needed help in order to build what you were building. And what options did you sort of look at as you sort of started to stare at that problem?
Well, when you go back to the early days, right? I mean, being a leader is always a little bit lonely, right? You're great, wait, I'm the one that the answers have to come from, right? So it all comes down to you, right? And then who you're putting on the bus with you, right? How do you have the right people in the right seats, to take something from Jim Collins, right? On Good to Great. It's making sure you have the right people on the seat on the bus. But at the same time, cash flow and burn rate is real. And you want to make sure that you're not hiring, before that's sustainable, and you can employ all of those folks. Otherwise you're hiring and firing more quickly than anyone would prefer. That's a hard place to be. And so I was actually really slow to hire, which may have impeded our growth a little bit, but it was one of those things where I was always watching cash flow and burn rate and wanted to always be as sustainable as possible. And so we knew we wanted to hire when we were all drowning, right? There's too many things going on. You can't keep up. If you are starting to not be able to serve your client well, then you got to start hiring.
Yeah.
And then it's figuring out which pain points do you want to solve the quickest, right? Which areas am I the weakest in as a leader? And then trying to hire for those gaps of knowledge or experience or time. Because as much as often leaders are good at wearing lots of hats, we don't usually excel at everything, right? We can't be good at everything. If you are one of those people, you are very, very lucky. So even though I'm a generalist at heart and kind of my skill set, I like to wear a lot of hats. I can move the needle on a lot of places. There's certain areas of expertise that I was like, man, I know that there's somebody who can do this a lot better than me. And who are those people? And hiring fractional is always more affordable than hiring full time, right? You're looking at taxes and benefits and all of those things. And it's a nice way to kind of dip your toe in the water of like, all right, who is this person? Can we test it out? Can we start them at just a little bit and then kind of figure that relationship out as you go? So there's been several roles actually that we outsource, especially in the beginning. Bookkeeping is a big one that a lot of us love to outsource. And it's like, great. And I set up QuickBooks. I did all of that. So we outsourced that pretty quick, right? Of like, okay, I want a third party that can come in and make sure we're compliant and it's all properly done. You don't want to mess around with that too much. And then there became operational pain points too. And so, of course, now internally we have a CFO and we have full time and all of that. But I think there was quite a while there where we went fractional, and we still have fractional support currently, and it's been really helpful. And actually, some of our fractional support is so helpful that I keep trying to get them to come on full time. But they keep telling me no. And so pros and cons on that and finding good people to help.
Yeah. Well, as you think about sort of what that looked like for you, and you sort of went through that process of understanding those gaps, can you double click down that a little bit more for me? I mean, given that you are a generalist and that you have an ability to sort of stretch and pull across different areas, how did you actually get to the point where like this is the problem that I want to solve, and then ultimately, how did you go about choosing, sort of the right resources to help you do that?
Yeah, I think for me, I am very good at getting stuff done and being able to juggle a lot of things, creating the systems around them and doing it in a scalable way for us to grow is probably something that I am less good at. So as that growth came around and it was like, okay, great, those Excel sheets don't work so well right now, or now you need to upgrade your CRM. And then if we're going to use HubSpot, who's creating that? How are we doing that? Commission plans and tracking commissions and all of those, as things get more complex as you grow, the need for scalable systems and deeper expertise became pain points. So
Was that friction point, Karen? Did you find that sort of as that sort of evolved and got bigger and bigger, what was the bottleneck? Was it all coming back to you?
I would like to say no, but it probably was. I probably was the bottleneck. Honestly, there are probably pieces of my life at the company where I still am the bottleneck. I try to be self-aware. But when you're a founder and a CEO, there are things that are hard to let go of. And so I think that's the importance of having someone that you can trust. And when you do make a hire, if they're not the right hire, that's so much work. And that's, you're looking at morale on the team and lost time and lost money for the training and all of that. And so for me, it was saying, where can I get out of the way? And then who do we know who can start to fill in some of those gaps? And because I was slower to hire, finding someone in that fractional role was really helpful. And I went to my network and would ask lots of questions of like, hey, does anyone know anyone who can do this, or looking for a part-time side hustle who could take on that? And I think that's a really healthy way of just kind of dipping your toe in the water and trying to figure out who that is. And at the time, we've done that for several roles. Beata has been on your podcast before with Compass, and she is a dream for us to work with. So she's a fractional CRO for us, Chief Revenue Officer. And she's brilliant at what she does. And at the time, I didn't know her, but another founder who I knew who had spun up a really successful company and then had exited that had texted me and was like, hey, do you know this person, Beata? You need to know her. And when you have any other founder who's worked with somebody and they're saying you need to know this person, that's always worth a conversation. And so recommendations from somebody in the trenches who's lived the life you're living, you're like, oh, they're helpful. That's really great. And she pitched me on something bigger. And I was like, I don't know if I need that yet. What about this project? And it was something tiny, but I just wanted it off my plate. And luckily she was flexible with me. She was like, Karen, sure, I'll help here. And she got in and she like slayed the first project. And then I was like, oh, that was amazing. Here, can you also help with this project? And I think within 3 months, she was on a monthly retainer and we were signing a contract. And so she definitely earned her way in with us and proved her value so quickly that then I have actually, when I could not get her full time, I actually have referred her to other founders too, who have had similar pain points. They're like, well, how are you solving this? Like, I know somebody that you need to know who can help you there. And so I think ultimately hiring fractional support like that, when they're the right people, have made us more efficient. It's saved us money on our bottom line, and it's made me a better leader. For sure.
Karen, I'm really curious. You serve nonprofit leaders. You helping them grow their organization. You want to, obviously, with financial services and financial tools, but I don't see a ton of nonprofit leaders going with fractional leaders. Can you comment on that? Should they not, as they grow from 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, like wherever they're at? What's your thoughts on all the leaders that you serve kind of in this space and sort of the talent they need to get from here to there?
I actually make recommendations to our clients all the time for fractional leaders. So I am a very big proponent of it. I am usually on the financial side, right? And we technically are kind of fractional ourselves because we're investment advisors, right? So we're getting in the weeds of like, what money's in your bank? Like, what's it doing? How are we thinking about those funds? Where are your reserves? Do you have longer term holdings? Do you not? And kind of, do you have a policy around that? So we're creating all of that for them. So even though that's not how we come alongside people, we are ultimately their fiduciary partner, right? And so that is how we serve our folks. And when we get into that, it's often bookkeeping, taxes, things like that in particular, or development support too. Like, how do we fundraise? Do you know any fundraising consultants? So we actually have like a preferred list of partners. Again, it's community, it's network, it's people you trust that we say, hey, we don't get anything from this, right? But here's some people that may be helpful to you. And I think in the nonprofit world, that those referrals and recommendation do a lot on trust. Things I think you cannot outsource as a nonprofit leader is fundraising. You have to be the person building the relationships, talking about the vision, doing the programmatic work. It's more about how does someone come alongside and make sure the campaigns and the strategy or the marketing or the finances are all aligned. And the beauty of that kind of fractional support is then you can focus on the mission at hand, right? Then you can do the work and the programs and sharing the vision. And that's often where your passion and your heart is, which is why you're in the nonprofit world too, right? And you're creating leaders within your team and those opportunities. And the more I know for me, the more I can focus on our vision and supporting our team and our clients, the better the company is. And so the more I can free my time up, I'm still in the weeds, but like try to get myself, right? They always say, are you working on the business or in the business? And I'm like, yes, I do both.
Yeah, constantly.
But the more you can work on the business versus in the weeds of the everyday and get the people you trust to kind of come alongside you in those things, I think the better the organizational health as a whole really is.
Yeah. I'm getting us a little off topic, and Josh, we'll come back to yours in a second, but I just came on as a CDO, Chief Development Officer for a nonprofit. And that was what I was saying is actually you can't outsource those critical relationships that have been building in your organization for a long time. But here's what you can outsource:
Yes.
operations, marketing, campaign, strategy. Where do we how do we allocate dollars? How do we not? And it actually can be, we can really grow the pie. But there are certain things that trust side of our CEO, just like any big client relationships of a CEO in a business, I think that would be hard to outsource. So I'm glad you said that. It's affirming of what I just said to a new client of mine. I appreciate that, Karen.
I agree. And there are so many operational aspects that
Totally.
can be really overwhelming.
Yes.
And we even get that sometimes where it's like, great, we want to receive stock gifts and we don't know what that means. Great. Well, we can set them up in like 30 minutes, right? And make a really complex thing seem easy. And then they're like, well, will you get us donors? I'm like, no. I would love to. I would love to wave the magic wand and say yes. But like for us, we're like, great, we can get you the infrastructure. We can get it on your website. We can give you all of the talking points, but you still need to then talk to your donors and kind of create that. But that whole problem solving of the structure and the systems and the partner is almost more work, right? It's a different kind of work, but you have to have both sides of the house ready to go to scale and grow as an organization.
Yeah, that's really important.
So good job, Jeff.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll be signing up for Infinite Giving, I'm sure, quite soon. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Karen, when you think about sort of, and I've sort of heard you allude to it, but I want to ask you very specifically, how did you know it was working? Like, what was the litmus test or the bar for you to say, hey, this was working?
It's almost easier to say, when is it not working? Right? Like it's an element of, we're always supposed to be slow to hire, quick to fire. Right? That's the saying, is be slow, intentional about hiring, be quick to fire. We don't actually do that. That's actually really easy to say and kind of hard to do, right? And so I think that element of that's in the back of my head. And I think as a leader, I've gotten better at that. But generally, you know pretty quick if it's not working, right? Or you're like, hey, this person, maybe they're amazing, but they're not in the right role for them, and you don't have the right role, and you're trying to make it work, but it's not working. Or they're really good humans, but they're B players, and you really need an A player. And a B player is not bad, but if you're scaling and you're a smaller organization, like the B player stands out, right? A lot, whereas they may excel in another, organization and kind of community of folks. So if I'm going to get really specific, I would probably say, how quickly can they learn? Do they ask the right questions? And can I trust this stuff's getting done if I'm not asking about it? So for Beata, for instance, from Compass, she not only is able to somehow magically figure out exactly, and she'll ask, she's like, what do you want? What are your needs? What are your pain points? How do I solve this? Not only will she kind of do that, she always takes it the next step past what I was even thinking. And so there's this emotional just relief of like, oh, not only is she thinking how I'm thinking, she's thinking one step further on this area so that I can put more brain space over here. And I think the open communication and the trust of like, great. And she's like, great. I'm not asking her for meetings. She's putting time on my calendar. She's saying, great, here's what we're doing. Here's this. What do you like? What do you not like? How do we go from there? So I think a lot of it is short accounts, clear communication, and then knowing that not only is she doing what I would like her to do, she's able to take it the next step without me leading those conversations. She leads the conversations. God, it's a beautiful thing. I feel like this is an advertisement for Beata, and she is great. But it is just whoever that person is. And we've had other great fractional folks too. It's figuring out, do they have the expertise that can only do what you need, but be able to have the strategy and the insight and the experience to kind of forward think the next two steps and make sure that they're thinking ahead and then shining a light on that path for you as a leader and saying, hey, this is where this is going. Is this what you want? Is this not what you want? Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So Karen, what advice would you give to other founders kind of before you were hiring Fractional or thinking about these right leaders? Like looking back, what do you wish you would have known?
I think if there are other founders listening, I would say, thank you for starting the thing. Like building something from nothing is so hard, and you're doing it, and stick with it and be resilient and be convicted in the problem that you are meant to solve. And then with that, the other side of that conviction is there's ego and pride. And it's like, hey, you can't do it by yourself. So as much as like we're doing this thing, it is a collective we, right? If it was just a me, Infinite Giving would not be growing. We would not be where we are today. So kind of spreading the net and inviting the right people into the vision is how you grow and how you serve more people. And really figuring out the right people and the right seats on the bus is so important. And then being as slow to hire and quick to fire as you can. But again, fractional, the whole point of Yoke, and I'm here because I do believe in that, is the idea of these fractional folks coming alongside are a really great way to find good people. It's easier if someone's a 1099 to be like, hey, thanks for that project, it's not working out, than it is when you bring somebody on full time. Getting them in on the team and onboarded and then off the team is much harder. So, ideally you work your company into a place where you need all full-time people, but there's, I think, a huge swath of growth and time when you're scaling a small to mid-sized business or organization or nonprofit, where having all these key stakeholders come alongside you in some fractional ways are a better way to grow.
It's awesome. Okay, this has been a great conversation. I really, really, really appreciate you just sharing a little bit about your journey. Before we close up and we walk off, can you tell people where they can find and follow more about your work and the work at Infinite Giving?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find Infinite Giving at infinitegiving.com. We are a financial partner that serves small to mid-sized nonprofits. I also have a book on nonprofit finance that if you're like, okay, a fiduciary partner for nonprofits, investing, like, how do I learn more about that? You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Books, but it's called Funding Your Mission, again, by Houghton, which is me. But it's a good resource, I think, that you can share with boards and other key stakeholders that can help them buy into the vision of how do you move a nonprofit from a scarcity mindset into a strategic one with the vision of ultimately sustainability.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for being so gracious with your time. We really appreciate it. I know you've got a lot going on, and we'll let you get back to the great mission that you're working to build.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate you.